Okay, all right. Everyone, just to let you know, I've blocked you from being able to unmute yourself and from showing your video so that we don't have disruptions during the presentation. But if you raise your hand, um, we'll be able to ask you to unmute, or if you, as normal, send a chat. So, okay, Duane, over to you.
Thank you. I would like to once again extend my appreciation to the Moya University for this opportunity to share, with special mention of our techie people, Mike, BL, Rose, and any others who are making this available. And of course, all of you who have taken your valuable time to participate. It's more than a viewing, it's the presence that we all bring. It's the telepathy. And as we go through these presentations, it's very obvious that the connection on the heart level as well as the mental is growing exponentially. So before we launch into the main part of the presentation, I would like to just share a few comments on a post that I made on Facebook that a few of you may have seen. And the image that went with it is from The Secret Doctrine by H.P. Blavatsky that you can see up on your screen. And she talks about the importance of fire and water and how they fit into the big picture and how they have to be brought into harmonious relationships. And you can see that illustrated in the image. This next quote, however, summarizes to a very large degree what is taking place now historically. We have the Shambhala impact, which we know is the will of the Father. And as it comes down along that first ray line of descent, it impacts the mind with tremendous power and velocity. And all disciples of all different stages have to reconcile this fiery energy coming down with their emotional nature. And its ultimate goal is to lift everything by destroying that which is preventing the light from shining through. Is there anyone here that would like to read this quote for us? Because it's very germane, particularly in relationship to the second and third initiations. Any volunteers? Michael, thank you.
The fire of mind today has to be reckoned with the water of desire. This second initiation, as now undergone, is to some extent one of the most difficult. It involves purification, but it is purification by fire, symbolically understood. The occult application of fire to water produces certain most serious and devastating results. The water, under the action of fire, is resolved into steam, and the initiate is immersed in the fogs and miasmas, the glamours and the mist thus caused. Out of this fog and out of the glamours, the initiate must emerge. Out of the present fog of human affairs, humanity will also emerge eventually. The success of the individual initiate is the guarantee of the racial destiny. The complications produced by water in conjunction with fire in these Aryan days are far greater than those produced entirely by water in Atlantean times. This age is kama manasic, and not simply comic or strictly astral. Remember, therefore, as you read these words that I am speaking symbolically, the fire of mind today has to be reckoned with in conjunction with the water of desire. And it is owing to this that much of humanity's problem develops. It is because of this that the second initiation has become one of the most difficult, which the modern disciple has to take. Before him lies the third initiation of the Transfiguration. Facing him is a great transition from an emotional aspirational focus to an intelligent thinking focus. He has, theoretically at least, cast off the control of the astral body and nature. Much still remains to be done. Old desires, ancient astral reactions, and habitual emotions are still powerful, but he has developed a new attitude to them and a new perspective to the astral body. Water, fire, steam, glamour, delusion, misinterpretation, and emotional continuity still mean something specific and undesirable to him. He is now negative to their appeal and positive to the higher demanding focus. That which he now loves and longs for, desires and plans for, lies in another and higher dimension. He has, through his willingness to pass through the second initiation, struck the first blow at his innate selfishness and has demonstrated his determination to think in wider and more inclusive terms. The group begins to mean more to him than himself.
Excellent, Michael. Thank you. You have such a melodious voice, and it carries authority. At this Shambhalic period, humanity and the different discipleship groups, they stand at the crossroads of a great revolution. And if he or she has the correct occult information and the lawful techniques for where they are situated on the spiritual path of initiation, they will survive and flourish. And this idea of the synchronicity between fire and water is so key. If anyone or all of us in the group were to stand in a very cool morning before a still lake without any ripples, without any wind, and saw the sun rising slowly, they would notice that in the early stages, there's real visibility. It's very clear the parameters of the forest and that beautiful body of water. But as that sun gets a little higher, it does something very magical, very occult, which DK has eloquently shared here with all of his beautiful language. The cold water being impacted by the warm sun begins to create a mist. And that mist can become so all pervasive that you can't hardly even see 10 feet in front of you. And I have a little image, a little animation that I'm going to show next. And it demonstrates something very heated, like fire, descending into water quickly. And I think what I'm trying to clarify here is that if you meter and if you make your changes slowly and methodically, the discomfort is minimal and the way ahead can be much clearer. If change is made too abruptly, and this relates to what initiation you're undergoing, because we know at the third you can actually take 2 or more initiations in one lifetime according to the Tibetan. But the next animation that I'm going to show you visually and auditorily describes and shows what is happening with humanity. And this image is something I got from a physics Facebook site. And I wish I could say I created it, but I did not. So the sound that you're going to hear is the sound of an object that's very highly heated descending into water. DK has pointed out that this particular period, this shambolic impact of 2025, is actually sort of a recapitulation of what the Buddha did many, many hundreds of years ago. And that is what is termed in the occult language, the gathering in of the arhats. And the Buddha, seeking liberation at that time, was able to guide and fortify and direct many, many of his disciples and initiates that were coming up for the second and particularly the third initiation. And we're having, on a higher turn of the spiral, a repeat performance cyclically. And this little video demonstrates what's happening to a lot of humanity that are not prepared, that are not moving, not going with the flow of these very powerful energies. And what further substantiates this statement by DK about the Arhats congregating at this time historically is that when you list the constellations that are having the most influence upon us at this time, we're all very familiar with the 3 primary ones, which are the Great Bear, Sirius, and the Pleiades. However, Draco is very important, and Draco demonstrates the 7th ray. And we know that there is this shift from the 3rd ray to the 7th ray emphasis through the Master R and other Chohans. So DK has further stated that this influx of 7th ray energy from Draco will do a number of different things. For those who are coming up for the 3rd initiation, they will find a great and exponential boost to go through that initiation. For discipleship in the different groups, it will stimulate them also to move forward on the path, but any limitations or personality defects will become very powerfully stimulated. Keep in mind that all spiritual energy of the higher type will, in the early stages of its descent, overstimulate the elemental energies in our 3 lower bodies. And then third, DK has said that this powerful Draco energy working with these other 3 primary constellations that I just mentioned and that express rays 1, 2, and 3, they will overstimulate humanity, and it will cause the lower centers below the diaphragm to, and I quote, run riot. And this is particularly important with the sacral center and sexuality. Sexuality is a great gift from all these higher levels, but if a person has not purified their their higher centers and overshadowed their lower centers, sexuality can become, when it's uncontrolled, a great hindrance. Okay, excellent. I wanted you to see that because it is truly fire and water on the lowest level coming together, and the very hiss is like a foreboding of how the personality, or in this case, the astral body, is going to react. Okay, are there any comments or questions up to this point?
Michael, Stacy says everything in nature progresses slowly, and applicants must learn the occult truth of the words, make haste slowly. And that's from Initiation Human and Solar 197 and 198.
Make haste slowly. It's beautiful because to me, it shows the inherent paradox. We want to move along and take advantage of every energy that's coming in our direction, but at the same time, we have to know our unique, for lack of a better word, absorption rate. Taking too much energy too quickly, and it will cause havoc with your lower bodies. But if you meter your progress out, it can happen safely and more stably. Thank you, Michael. Excellent. Any other comments?
That's all I see right now. And we do have a hand. Hold on a minute.
Ariane.
Yeah, please go ahead, Ariane.
We can't hear you, Ariane.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great. So thank you for taking my comment. Just a couple remarks besides hasten quickly. You know, in the externalization of hierarchy, it talks about the first 25 years of any century working up to the conclave, which is happening in this year's with the hierarchy meeting and discussing the status of humanity and the immediate future, that the Shambhala energies are unleashed, and they generally fortify and stimulate those men and women who are who have mental capacities. That doesn't mean that they're higher initiates, but they have the capacity to use their minds, and we see this, you know, destructively. But also, according to my teacher, you know, one of my teachers, Benjamin Crumb, he would say that in the Bible, when there's a reference to Jesus saying, I will bring a sword, and a sword will separate husband from wife, parent from child, that this time, it's called the sword of cleavage. And basically
Yes.
what it is it's stimulating all things. So the essence of individuals, their nature is apparent for all to see. So those who are being stimulated and working or deluded enough to be promoting the forces of materiality, the dark forces, the forces that are attempting to destroy this planet, they will be known for their goods, for their acts. And those who are working for the forces of light, the hierarchy, or who are beneficent people or people who are aiming to be harmless, they will be known. But that doesn't negate the fact that we are responsible for the karma of our species and that we need to be involved in making sure that there's a good outcome. Maitreya says nothing happens by itself, meaning that we all have a part to play on our own level in making sure that the world is healed and saved, and that there's a continuance of humanity, meaning our humanity and the human species.
Beautifully shared. And I love the idea of fortifying. You take your vitamins every day and your herbs, so you're fortifying your immune system against unwanted invasions. The word stimulate, the word involved, this idea of a sword where there's cleavage. And you might say it's a minor uh, separating of the wheat from the chaff. And we know there's a major one coming in the next root race, which will be huge. But this is definitely an important one and one that we need to understand. Thank you, Ariane. Anyone else like to make any comments?
Yes, we've got a couple of them. Heidi says the last comment also reflects the different geometrical shapes that progress from the square, and currently Saturn and Neptune are bringing exactly what you were talking about now.
Wow, this is a very important statement. We're going to pick up the theme of astrology and its relationship to triangles and to uh, geometric forms. And I'm going to let the Tibetan speak for himself when we reach that point. But Heidi, this is a perfect introduction because all the planets, all the rays, all the planes, all the devas, they deal with color, sound, vibration, and they have a certain type of geometry. Thank you. Okay, any additional comments?
I think that's it for right now.
Okay, here we are moving into the geometry of 3D charts. One of the questions that is often asked in occult circles is, well, what's going to be the new teachings and how are they going to look? How are we going to recognize them? And some people legitimately ask, well, how can we understand new teachings if we don't fully understand what we've already been given? I mean, who really understands all of HPB's works as the first demonstration? And then Alice A. Bailey following that in her momentous works. It's not easy. However, the Tibetan has given us hints. And when DK says you should look at a certain chart that he has given Alice Bailey, and she sort of scribbles it down, and then maybe some student later on makes it a little clearer, that's not 3D. And that's not to say the impact and the power of just the language, just the words, or a simple line graph can't invoke very powerful energies. But when you make something 3D by modern computer graphics, they become almost living in their potency. And yes, they are only symbols, they are only intermediaries, but they are intermediaries that are far closer to the essence of what's being indicated or directed. Okay, would anybody like to read this next quote by the Tibetan?
Okay, well, we're waiting for hands. Ariane says, at present, Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries signifies there will be new ideas of heroism and that humanity will be undergoing a time of maturation through a time of loss, limitation, and delusionment. Humanity is aching to reach adulthood. Karmically, we will suffer wisdom.
It reminds me of Rumi, who said, unless a man is free from desire, he is not fully grown. Yes, this idea of the age of heroes, we unfortunately have used that term with individual people, and often rightfully, the great composers and the great artists and thinkers and scientists. But this age of heroism is where large groups of people become transformed, and they become, you might say, their own heroes. There's too much hero worship, which is really mostly personality stuff. Yes, if it's a Wagner or uh, any other great artist, they're worthy of our praise, and we should see them as heroes. But this time around, we need to find our own heroism, and that comes from controlling the lower elementals as we're outlining here and bringing in that heavenly fire that will come down through the mental plane. Remember, the mental plane has 7 levels. The 3 lower are involutionary, and they just, as HPB said, they're termed karma manis. They're different principles, but they work so jointly together that they're considered under certain circumstances as one principle. 4th subplane, it's transitional. It's where you're leaving the elemental lower mental plane behind, and you begin becoming a true aspirant, and you're receiving and understanding the wisdom of the ageless teachings and the masters. And then when you start hitting the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, counting from below up, you're an initiate. In fact, you can't take the 3rd initiation, if I remember correctly, until you're operating at least on the 3rd subplane of the mental. And okay, excellent.
All right. Hold on a minute, Michael. I see your hand, but Asha says, please talk about the importance of how and why the exact time of sunrise is so critical. Reference to water fire.
That's a good question. And I'm going to throw that out to the group and see if anyone else would like to answer that. But I would say just quickly and simply that all systems of yoga deal in some way or another with cycles. And it's sort of known that in the early mornings, let's say like at 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock, the 4 cardinal points, 3 and then back to 6, these are potent times of the day where not only etheric energies can be in the ascendancy, but also other spiritual energies that we may not be aware of. But I throw that out to the group if anyone else would like to add to that.
Okay, we have a couple of comments, but first I want to ask, Michael, your hand went down. Was that just because you were volunteering to read again, or was it because you had a comment? Let me find you. There you go.
I was volunteering to read again.
Okay, well then
Excellent.
let me keep you, oh, all right, we'll do that. But I got a couple of more comments here. Heidi says, hero that is not glamour or self-centered becomes a place of center, which becomes a guiding light. That can begin to shine and energy will follow through the resonance of love.
Excellent. Excellent. The resonance of love.
And then Ariane says part of the dark force's ploy is to contaminate the ideas of leaders, heroes, as well as journalists, teachers, and politicians. By interfering with humanity's capacity to discern through widespread disinformation and propaganda, they strive to make people incapable of accepting true tutelage in the full emergence of Maitreya.
Wow, I totally agree with that statement. And this is why Viveka, which is discrimination from Patanjali's teachings, is so important, because you can separate truth from falsehood. And when people ask me this question, in contemporary terms about world events, I always tell them, do not get one source of information. Go behind the scenes and search out alternative forms of information. What do the Europeans think about this? What do the people in the Middle East? And try to get sources of information that aren't owned by huge corporations or vested interests. Thank you, Ariane.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, uh, Fran has a comment, but Asha's got her hand up. So Asha, please go ahead, and then we
then we'll
need to
go to the
move.
quote. Thank you.
Actually, I was volunteering to read, but I was fascinated by the first comment about when the fire in the water at the time of sunrise. That really just spoke to me in a poetic way more than scientific way. So thank you for that. But if you need a volunteer, I'm here to read. Thanks.
Okay, let me just you can go ahead and read. I mean, Michael was going to, but you can go ahead and read. But hold on just one second. Let me read Rand's thing, and then we need to move on. Okay. So he says on February 26th, Saturn Neptune becomes the apex of a triangle with Uranus in Taurus and Pluto in Aquarius, where DK speaks of the fourth ray coming into soul incarnations in 2025. He also states it will have a second resurgent approximately 600 years. I ran this alignment through solar fire inquiry, and this alignment only occurs one more time in 10,000 years in 2528. 592 years of DK's published quote. This is an important astrological triangle.
Excellent. And the fourth ray we know is humanity's soul ray. And according to the Tibetan, you cannot fully understand the true potency of the fourth ray until you become a fourth degree initiate master. And I find that very, very interesting because the fourth ray rightfully is associated with art and culture and civilization. And it has additional levels that bring in this drenching group love. We talk a lot about the second ray, and that's the ultimate goal. But the fourth ray is on the ascending or descending, depending on how you look at this, of the rays. And it's unlikely you're going to fully explore the second ray until you have really worked through and with the fourth ray, because it's that 246. It all comes from the second ray, and it's like a Jacob's ladder. You work your way up through. And this is why the astral body is so important, because the higher subplanes of the astral body have a direct link with the soul nature, and they tie in, if you see the rays as spirals, into the Buddhic plane. So the high astral is taken, well, I should say the astral body has taken a big hit with the occult community over the years, and they're just now beginning to understand that you cannot fully unfold the love petals until you have worked on your astral body and are dealing with higher subplanes. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, Asha, you want to go ahead and read the quote, please?
Yes, I will. Actually, I do have a question. We have all these evergreen, brilliant teachings from the Bailey readings and Blavatsky and everything that you talk about, Duane. And yet, my understanding from the different things that I get is that there's been a super accelerated quantum change recently with all the solar flares and things happening with humanity and Earth and all the chaos that's manifesting as a result of all the purification and light.
Yes.
And we're talking about making haste slowly. There's a part of me, I don't know how to say it without sounding disrespectful. I know we have these brilliant teachings, and was everything foreseen by DK, Alice Bailey, Blavatsky? Right now, there's always free will, there's always change, and you, Duane, are one of the people that want to attract me because you want to fast forward and go through the intuition without necessarily going through all the information. That's one of the reasons I always come to your teachings. My understanding is, I don't know how to express it even, but I'm just curious to your comment, that super amazing things have happened very recently. And we are making haste, and it always has to be done with a certain temperance because the body can only handle so much and it will blow circuits. So I'm going through intense purification myself.
Excellent. I agree. You bring out some important points, and
that we're fine and it's okay. And is it possible that things? Is it possible that things are happening over and beyond what Alice Bailey and DK said? And this is a sincere question.
Well, this is a very key question. In fact, it's the very question that has motivated me to spend so many years in the field of art in relationship to symbols, and also to initiate these type of Zoom meetings, because the Tibetan clearly states that everything that he gave was to be used up until 2000. And he says that after 2000, there's going to be a new interpretation of the ageless wisdom. Now, this is almost a direct quote from him, and I have showcased this quote so many times, I'm sure all of you remember it. It's really interesting because he also says there are going to be new ways of presenting this material. And so what I've tried to do in some small way is to take the teachings of the masters and get a sort of a mental understanding of what they're trying to say. You don't have to be Albert Einstein to go through initiation, but you have to have a clear mental body. That doesn't mean you've memorized a million tidbits of information. And to take these quotes from the masters and upgrade them by animations, by symbols. When DK gives specific details about a symbol, but it's all done in black type, to me, that's very powerful. And I've meditated and ruminated on these way before I was into the art field, these different passages. But it occurred to me that if we brought in the element of color, sound, some of the new tools like holography, the use of fractals, that some of the comments the Tibetan says are perfect descriptions of holography and fractals, that you have the law of seven. You have the one, the three, the seven, and the seven keeps duplicating itself infinitely on millions of different levels. In fact, there's no end to them according to the Tibetan. So we're trying to bring forth like this quote that somebody's going to read right now, the geometry of 3D charts. And we're going to tackle that today and see if we can't make some progress. And it will give people who think that the teachings may be somewhat pedantic or overly mental some inspiration that they're only foundational. They're only foundational. Okay, thank you. So would somebody like to read that now?
Yeah, I'll read that. Thanks. The geometry of 3D charts. Let your star shine forth. Astrologers will eventually find it necessary to cast 3 horoscopes or 3 charts, one purely physical, dealing with the body of nature, one primarily emotional and dealing with the quality of the personality and with its sensitivity or state of awareness, The third will be the chart of the mental impulses and conditions. It will be found that these three charts will take certain geometrical lines. The lines of energies will form patterns. These three charts, superimposed one upon the other, will give the personality diagram, the individual life pattern. Amazing symbolic charts and lineal forms will be found to emerge when this is done, and the geometry of the individual will grow out of this. Excuse me. For it will be found that each line will function in relation to another line, and the trends of the life energies will become apparent. Eventually, even in this department of knowledge, the star will shine forth. This will constitute a new branch of psychology, and its true exponent for our age will duly be found. Excuse me. I but indicate the lines of the future astrology in order to safeguard the present. Esoteric Astrology 440.
This is an incredible quote because DK is outlining right here, at least in relationship to psychology and astrology, where some of the new teachings are going to lie. And this is what we're going to explore today, this very concept. And unfortunately, it's going to be very superficial. However, it will be enough to spark the curiosity of those astrologers who really can see that astrology is a science that's progressing, and new ways of presenting it need to be brought out, not only to those disciples and initiates who are moving forward in the upper levels of the path, but average humanity. And think about the idea of a lot of these concepts that we're dealing with going right on Facebook. That's a revelation in itself. Okay, I
Dwayne,
do. Yes.
sorry, just before you move on,
Yep.
I posted the information in the chat to everyone, and I know you're aware of it, but Walter Pullen has this program, Astrolog, and it's available as free downware. And he works with, he actually pulls up 3D charts for you. And he also works with something Wayne is going to talk about in a minute or two, which is the triple sun. So I've got the link there. I just wanted you all to be aware that that is available. Um, I have to say, I know and love Walter, and I know and love his works. And I'm an astrologer, and even some of this is way over my head, but it's beautiful the way that he's been able to do this. So, like I said, I know you're aware of that, Dwayne.
Well, it's interesting. I have notes. I'm just jumping back one here because I want to share with the group. The very next thing that I was going to say, I have here in my notes, and it says this: charts in motion, like you will see here, the work of Walter Pullen. And then I'm going to describe a little bit about his work. I meant to share that, and then the very next thing, BL, I mean, this is purely telepathy to me. You're right there. You bring that out. And I remember when Walter first brought this idea of a spherical astrological chart out at one of the conferences when we had him years and years back. And I was falling off my seat because I saw the legitimacy, I saw the progressiveness exactly as BL has outlined. And let me just say, to look at the spherical chart of somebody in motion does this. It allows you to know what you're dealing with, like which is what charts are supposed to do. But it also shows you visually what's receding, what astrological influences are receding in their influence. And then if you look through the sphere as it's slowly turning, guess what? You see spherically, cyclically, what is coming up next. Now, I'm not saying a good astrologer can't do that, just interpreting a linear flat chart. But for somebody like myself, it was like a revelation. And it occurred to me, this is where the fifth ray is transiting into the fourth ray. Now, I don't want to put any words in Walter's on Walter's behalf, because he understands this far more than I do, because he is a true esoteric astrologer, just like BL. But to me, I grasped so much about my chart when I could see how everything, and we've tried to demonstrate it here with all these presentations, everything is spherical. Every sphere has an inlet and an outlet, a vortex, dual vortex, and that every force or energy that we're constantly talking about is in motion. The rays, the planes, the bodies. DK uses the word palpitate, throb, and these to go to what somebody said a little earlier, it's moving into poetry. But it's not just emotional poetry, it's like a high mental astral poetry that combines the best of the fifth ray and the best, at least as far as a teaching tool, of the fourth ray. These rays are not stacked like dinner plates one upon the other. They are organic, and we're going to demonstrate this as we have in the past. They overlap, they interpenetrate, they blend. There's morphed colors, which is you take blue, ray 2, you take green, ray 3, but what happens on the inner planes when they come into each other's vicinity? Do they maintain rigidly their blue and their green? No, a beautiful turquoise or aqua emerges as these two pass either through or influence each other cyclically. But again, we're going to get into that. Okay, we're
Asha's
ready.
got her Asha's got her hand up.
Okay, Asha, you're on, and then we're going to go into the quote.
Okay. My understanding of what is happening recently, and I know I'm kindergarten level astrology, so I don't know the things that there's a lot of learned people in this call that know much more, is that recently the Earth has pierced through the veil of illusion. And what was the matrix, the artificial intelligence kind of matrix that surrounded the Earth, is gossamer thin, almost non-existent, to the point that surely it must be impacting the way the planets were perceived by us humans on this planet. So I don't know, you broke out a little bit when you were talking about Walter Pullen's work. Does that account into some of that? Because, you've always talked about motion, rotary motion, and then
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
It shows the livingness of what we can look at on a piece of paper and interpret through text. And again, that's not a bad thing. The invention of the printing press was probably hierarchically inspired, and it took a small group of teachings, which were in monasteries and different places like that, out into the public, into the open.
Yeah, but my question is that only relatively recently, we're talking in the last few months,
Yes.
has the Earth actually shifted into the other dimension, and everyone's talking about the new Earth. And that veil, once that veil is no more, that it impacts the way the planets are perceived. When we talk about ancient teachings, palm leaf recordings, and all the astrology that we've learned, that must change the whole chart completely, surely.
Well, I think
I'm
you're
talking
right.
as a kindergartner. I'm talking as a kindergartner. So at
Well,
level. So
let me share a few thoughts. It takes long cycles that can be in millions of years for humanity to reach enlightenment on a really large scale, like the sixth root race. And yes, I do feel and understand that we are being pierced by these higher energies, but it's not going to dissipate glamour or illusion immediately. It's going to take quite a bit of time. And that is not meant in any way to discourage anybody, because all of you who are here inquiring and adding to the group composition, you know that, and you're using it and you're moving forward. But again, we understand this takes time, and some disciples move faster than others. It depends a lot on your raise. So I agree with you, Asha, but I think the time frame may be a little longer than what most people think, at least New Age.
Can I say something, Duane?
Please.
I would like to add that BK tells us that humanity is on the brink of taking the first initiation. And when that happens, that's exactly what Asha was talking about. Okay. You begin to
Yes,
awaken to the energy of the esoteric rulers, to the higher energy, not the old, um, Pluto is bad, Saturn is bad, Mars is bad, not that type of energy. So that's part of what's happening. And when the veil becomes thinner, when the veil is ripped, that brings in the awareness of, and as Dwayne just said, it takes a long time for those energies to build and to become a part of ourselves. So.
excellent. Thank you, BL. That's a wonderful clarification. Okay, do we have a reader now?
Um, Heidi's got her
Heidi.
hand up.
Heidi.
Okay, the triple sun meditation, sun sign, rising sign, opposite sign. The objective of the 12 rising sign zodiacal meditation formulas of the Tibetans is to evoke the energy of the rising sign, whichever this may be, set up a relation with the opposite sign, and fuse both with the sun sign. The three potencies, the sun, rising, and opposite signs, covered by an esoteric planetary symbol, fused in the rising sign seed, thought, and precipitated by recognition of the esoteric planet that governs the rising sign, become effective in the expression of the disciple in the three worlds through the medium of service to humanity. The second sun or rising sign is the goal in part one of the formula. Between the first sun or the sun sign and the second sun or rising sign, the disciple visualizes the planetary symbol or form arise. He hears the word go forth, and as the symbol shapes itself, as the word evokes response, the energies of the rising sign is superimposed over the sun sign and supplements and enhances its expression, obliterating, symbolically speaking, its lesser light. Part two of the formula deals with the energy of the third sun or the opposite sign and its synthesis with the fusion of the already blended dual potency of the rising sign and the sun sign.
This is extracted from a commentary by Stephen Douglas Pugh, and I highly recommend you. He has several books out that you can get from Amazon that goes into this in real detail. And it's part of the future of astrological work and the idea of fusing opposite signs. Let's say you're Cancer. You're going to need to not only understand the energies of Cancer to move forward, but at a higher turn of the spiral, you're going to have to understand and invoke the energies of Capricorn. And we know that Cancer is probably 2-6, actually 2-7, and Capricorn is 1-3-7. So it's all about balancing. And let us continue with an additional quote by the Tibetan, and then we're going to demonstrate visually how this might look in with images and with some animations. This idea of finding your planetary symbol. HPB went into this very powerfully when she said, you have a prototype and you have a planet that's most exaggerated and developed in your alignment. And you need to know what that is, and you need to know its color. Are we talking about, let's say, Jupiter, second ray blue? It has a certain note, and we're going to get into some of the work that Michael Robbins did and used throughout his career. Stuff that we developed at the first PhD program when we worked together with Dr. Robert Girard and Rancho Santa Fe at Danny and Danielle's back in 1990. And you can see how dated I am. Okay, so someone like to read this comment, excuse me, this quote. It's also from Stephen Douglas Pugh, and he borrows heavily from the Tibetan, and he usually gives quotation marks, but sometimes he doesn't. But it's good to put things sometimes in your own words.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
The opposite sign represents the monad, life, power, and will. The rising sign, the soul, consciousness, and love. And the sun sign, the body, personality, and activity. In any one incarnation, the monad works through the opposing sign, the soul through the rising sign, and the personality through the sun sign. And these necessarily vary from life to life, related to the spirit and the three crosses. The cardinal cross, the monad, the first aspect. The fixed cross, the soul, the second aspect. The mutable cross, personality, the third aspect. The 12 esoteric ruling planetary symbols in meditation formula exoterically depict the relationship between the rising sign and the sun sign. Esoterically, it is seen to precipitate the incoming energy from the rising sign. The esoteric planetary symbols of the 12 rising signs, according to DK, are very ancient and are only given to pledged disciples. Each planetary symbol that is esoterically called precipitating agent serves when correctly envisioned, envisaged, to focus the energies and the disciple is seeking to invoke and to use his own betterment and for the helping of humanity. To date, we only have group record of 3 DK given esoteric planetary symbols. The 3 given symbols are Pluto for Pisces, Vulcan for Virgo, and Sun for Leo. Remember, through your creative imagination, you must build, create, and visualize a planetary symbol if it has not been given. Your symbol is to be a chalice, and it is esoterically to be seen as precipitating the incoming energy of your rising, opposite, and sun sign. The 3 potential potencies are precipitated by your planetary symbol. There are 12 seed thoughts or formulas of words that, when related to the 12 symbols, bring through the needed energy from the 12 signs of the zodiac. The seed thought will evoke the potency of the rising sign through incarnation. The seed thought of the rising sign and the symbol related to the esoteric planet have to be first ascertained, and after the correct casting of the horoscope, before the disciple can do his meditation. Potency of the entire meditation process is contained in the seed thought, for which all the first steps are simply preparatory, and the last precipitating and anchoring. There is one seed thought for each sign. The seed thoughts are used in connection with the rising sign and never with the sun sign. The seed thought will evoke the potency of the rising sign through invocation.
Excellent. This idea of finding your planetary symbol, and that symbol is going to be some form of geometry. And I have literally flooded these Zoom meetings with symbol after symbol after symbol. And I haven't gone into the astrological symbols so much, but the symbols of the rays and different other principles and laws. So it's required that the disciples sort of weed through a lot of this technical information and find what's going to work for them. And the potency of these seed thoughts and the use of the creative imagination, the idea of acting as if. Thank you, BL. That's excellent. And now we're going to actually take somebody's chart in the next few. And this one that you're looking at here gives the observer an idea of the different crosses, but actually most important in this discussion is what is your polar opposite? Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, Libra. If you're a Leo, Aquarius, these are very, very important relationships because DK says eventually you have these polar opposites merging. I mean, could you think of a better way to move forward on the path when you understand your astrological sign and its influences, suddenly realize you have to incorporate and draw into your studies, into your auric work, into your bodies, the polar opposite. Oh my God, did I learn that when being a Cancer with 2 brothers who were Capricorns and one was a Taurus. And I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. I used to say, something's wrong here. When I was like 8 or 10 or 12, I just don't fit in this family. My mother was an angel, and I got along with her beautifully. But everything Capricorn did grated against my Cancer sensitivity. But then later on, I realized, hello, these relationships are not just done at random. There's a plan. And I had to learn more about the so-called hard ray lines. the more masculine ray lines. Simply being an artist wasn't enough. I had to train my mental body to parallel my art with different types of symbolic renderings. But there it is, and these can all be downloaded. Okay, so let's move to a chart. This is done by Michelle Gallagher. Actually, Michelle Galloway Daniels. And she did this up for a friend of mine, Adam DeFranco, who lives up in this Grass Valley area and has some land, some community land. Anyway, it's multiple tiers because it relates towards the flowering of the sun. If we go to the top, the outer petals of the flower relate to the Pisces sun. What influences are operating? The Libra ascendant is the middle tier. And then you have in the middle circle of the houses, the rulers of those houses. Virgo opposition, Libra ascendant, Pisces sun. And in the next image, it's a little bit, I spent a little time to make it a little more colorful so you could see, and that you can see the type a little better. And so, and I'm not in any way saying that this chart is entirely correct, because I don't have the skill. I have a general understanding of astrology, but nothing like BL and others in the group. But it intuitively feels right to see people doing 3D charts. So it's not just your personality with its three lower instruments that you have to understand and synthesize and blend together their lower lights. You have to take the soul light, and then you have to blend that with the personality light. And then later on, you have to take the monadic light and blend it with the two lesser luminaries, which is the soul and the personality ray lights. So it's, again, in some respects, because astrology is a vast field, this is just like one part of it. But to me, it indicates the way of the future. Now, I'm not sure exactly who did this chart, but this is also a triple astrological chart. And that VSK, it's either Stephen Douglas Pugh or somebody he knows. It could be Victoria Stone. But here's another visual example of a 3D chart. And again, it can be overwhelming to the lower mind, but to an astrologer who has done their research and has done charts for years and years and years, this can be very revelatory, because this is what DK is indicating is coming in the future, and we are the future. This book, Esoteric Astrology, was probably published, I'm going to guess, say in the 50s or 60s, but it probably, the original manuscript was done quite a few years before that. Seeing the 12 astrological signs as one spherical life. And here again, you have the three crosses. 3 times 4 equals 12. And you can, if you can imagine, each one of these trumpet vortices is one of the astrological signs. And I'm going to skip through these fast because you've probably seen some of them. Okay, here we are, we're taking it into geometry now, but it's the same identical principle. The 12 faces of the zodiac seen as a dodecahedron. Why is the number 12 so potent and important in occult work and in so many different traditions? Because when you bring 12 together as a geometric model, this is what you end up with. Okay, this is our solar logos. And these numbers in the center are the planetary logoi. And this actually goes with a different commentary. And it may look a little blurry, but the attempt here is to show that these 7 sacred planets are mutating, they're spiraling, they're active, they're alive, and that they are the centers. The 7 sacred planets are the centers in the 12-petal lotus of our solar logos. Second ray solar system, that's why you have the blue there, but you could also put yellow because our solar logos is of the 4th order, which would be yellow. These are very, very powerful symbols. And all the little dots surrounding the numbers, as you've seen in other illustrations, are the master's ashrams. And to go back to a comment I made earlier when I said that Draco was pouring out this powerful 7th ray energy, guess what planet it's going to work through? And it may work through a number of planets, but its primary planet is Uranus. Electric. And you know, we talk about the 1st ray and the 7th ray, but the more you study the teachings, the more you realize certain rays have an affinity with other rays. That the 7th ray, yes, it's the lowest point of manifestation on one level, and the 1st ray is the highest point of spirituality on another level. But at a very, very high level, when the 7th ray and the 1st ray fuse, Shiva and Shakti, you have the absolute perfect blend in the higher head centers, the crown, the 1,000-petal lotus of Shiva and Shakti. That's what all this Eastern metaphorical symbolic language is. The earth energy must become fused with the highest aspect, not repressed, not denied. And this is why during the 1st and 2nd initiations, you will get feelings of heat and electricity in your centers, often the base of the spine where the 7th ray resides. But once you hit the 2nd initiation and move into the 3rd, you are getting zapped. You will feel very strong energy currents being lifted up. And then after, well, I should say during and after the 3rd initiation, the 7th ray moves all the way to the top of the head, the crown. They become one. And then you have the potential of taking the 4th, 5th, 6th initiations, perhaps in other cycles. But sometimes you can take, as I mentioned earlier, 2 or more initiations in one lifetime. Once you reach the 3rd, once you master that mental elemental and you have simultaneously opened the heart, purified the emotions, and kept your physical body in as best shape you can under the adverse conditions of a polluted planet. Okay, excellent. Any questions up to this point?
We have a few. Ariana asked what the source was for what Asha said on the Earth Veil, and then Asha posted in there a source, greenterraguru.com. So that's in there. And then Ariana also says the average point of evolution of the human being is 0.33. This is nowhere near 0.1. And then I think this is based on the comment that I said. She said that does not signify, or maybe it's based on hers, that some of the people here in this Zoom event have not reached the 1st degree initiates. And I would say, or more. And of course, that's true.
Absolutely.
Let me see what else we've got here. Susie says, might the concept of astrodynes help give a signature of our main planet in any one life? And then she says, perhaps the Sabian symbol for the ascendant is a source for your info on the symbol.
Yes, Dane Rudia is absolutely. I read him before Bailey, and his use of symbols, he calls them something else, but he always summarizes by some symbolic rendering that I find very, it allows my intuition to enter into it. Yeah, Dane Rudia, absolutely unbelievable. Or was that Alan Leo, PL?
Um, I think both of them are amazing. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
Jane Rujar was, but anyway, that's
yep, I think so
um,
too.
um,
Okay, those are
Ben
good
said
comments. Yep, go ahead.
Ben says that Stephen, can you help us out to find this guy? My research failed. Um, I think if
If
you just do Qoug,
Pugh,
there you go.
you can
There you go.
find him by going to Amazon because he has books and he has a link. He has a Facebook site. It's under Stephen Douglas Pugh, and you can make an inquiry. And you can also look up the astrological key to the secret doctrine, and stuff will come up because he's got a couple books on that too. And I apologize for not having his link. He's
I'll see if
beyond
I
brilliant.
I'll see if I can find it and post it. Let me see. So, Lauren says, how do you know if you've taken an initiation in a previous lifetime and thus recapping it now, or if you are taking it for the first time?
Speed. If you're recapitulating it, and there can be exceptions to this rule, if you're recapitulating it, it will happen very fast. If it's if you're just working on the next initiation, it does take a lot longer. But keep in mind that every initiation, every degree of, say, let's say initiation 1, 2, and 3, the first is longer than the second, and the second is longer than the third. And that's why I apologize for the repetition. Once you reach the third initiation, you can actually take more initiations in that one lifetime. It's an exponential thing. Okay, excellent.
And then Michael Stacy says Marky Jones developed the Sabian symbols
Sabian
in
symbols.
Balboa Park in San Diego in the early 1920s. Yes, he did. He says he knows that because his grandmother studied with him. But also,
Whoa.
Dane Rujar took that material and expanded on it in his book too. So there's a lot of good information there on the Sabians.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. That's the word I was looking for. Sabian symbols.
Oh, uh, Dana says her grandmother also studied with him. So cool, cool, cool. Okay, that's it.
Awesome.
I think we're up to all of the.
Thank you, Dana. Okay. So it said my internet connection was unstable. Let's all say a little prayer here. Okay, so what we have here is the star of life, and that is the dual tetrahedron, and superimposed over it, or perhaps I should use a different word, nesting eloquently in the center of this dual tetrahedron or six-pointed star is the dodecahedron, nesting perfectly. And when you get into the study of the Platonic solids, they may all seem sort of uh, disjointed and they're all different, but they do nest seamlessly one within the other when you get to study them. So again, we've discussed the star of life, and it's what we're all moving towards. The star of life is really the fusion of the personality ray and its light, the soul and its light, and the one monadic life. Although there are different interpretations, that to me is the highest. Okay, here's another symbol of a dodecahedron nesting within other dodecahedrons. And imagine the dodecahedrons rotating in opposite directions. They're all a part of one composite, and the outer shell or wall of that last large dodecahedron is ensouling these other ones. Or we could say these inner ones are expressing themselves through this outer dodecahedron. But they are part of one overriding organism that's dancing. It's in motion. It's poetic. But at the same time, they're independent. And that is not easy to visualize until you have an image that you feel occultly, sort of like a warmth. And that's what DK says about the new art. He says, you will know when you're looking at the new Aquarian occult art because you will feel heat in your body or like electricity. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be very subtle. And then you have in the blue all the webbing of the etheric plane, which is the outer square as you penetrate into that ultimate star of light. Okay, now DK says, find your star, find your symbols. Well, here's one right here. And I apologize for the repetition, but here we see another dodecahedron, only it's called the Great Stellated Dodecahedron. And the only difference between this and the one I showed you earlier is that I've taken
We lost you, Duane. Duane, we lost you.
dodecahedrons and I've brought, oh, okay. I don't know what to say.
You were just telling us how you
Well,
stellated the dodecahedron there.
can you, am I still lost or are you,
No, you're back.
can
You're
you hear
back.
me? Oh, I'm
We
back.
can,
Okay, well, thank you. Uh, I did get a notice that said there was some interruption in my signal. Okay, I want you, thank you so much, BL. Yeah, just let me know if and where did I leave off?
you
I
were
was,
discussing how you stellated the dodecahedron there.
okay, thank you. So this dodecahedron that you're looking at right now is simply taking the dodecahedrons at the center, or I should say the pentagons, there's 12 pentagons that make up a dodecahedron, and bringing them together into a point. So this is but this is, you might say, a more masculine, a more dynamic, as opposed to this one right here, although this is very powerful too. And this is a quote from Agni Yoga that we've used. The combination of two dodecahedrons is useful for promoting the rhythm of fire. Well, if you're into the teachings of the Roriches, Agni Yoga through Moya, Master Moya along the first ray, this is a powerful symbol. And he says a combination. So I put up two at the top, each a mirror image of the other, and the one down below is them superimposed together. Okay, now, and we're going to open it up for conversation after this next, but this is the first really powerful occult symbol, the dodecahedron in motion, and it morphs and it has a life of its own.
I think we lost you again. Wayne,
And it expresses beautifully the fourth ray. Rose, are you still there?
we keep kind of losing you, but you're coming in and out. So
Okay. Well, I was pointing out that these dodecahedrons in the Agni Yoga teachings are very powerful. And now I'm going to demonstrate the dodecahedron in motion. Can you still hear me, BL?
yes,
Okay. So take a deep breath, relax. This is a meditation and let it come to you. Don't try to overanalyze it. Excellent. Can you still hear me, BL?
yes,
Thank you. Everything that I outlined prior to this animation alluded to this one gyrating, palpitating, throbbing symbol of hierarchy, 12 signs of the zodiac, and 12 petals of the egoic lotus, and on and on and on. And this is how, in my opinion, a lot of astrological symbols will be presented in the future. For those of you who are familiar with some of my work, I've done up what is called the different ray schools, and they show what DK has outlined, the information that they're a certain color or they deal with certain types of energy, and put them down in a graphic image. And hopefully, if I'm in incarnation long enough, I will take some of the key astrological symbols and animate them, and as we're doing here right now. And I apologize for some of the long drawn out quotes, but it's very important that everybody understand that this is not something that was created by the fervent imagination of an artist, which I have been rightfully accused of periodically, but it really comes from an ashramic impulse. And it's just a new way of looking at an old truth. It's a new presentation that is taking us into, you might say, AI, because this was all done with computers. And actually, I didn't make this one here. I utilized it. I modify it for our purposes, but a lot of this artificial intelligence has tremendous potential to take the old Raja Yoga teachings into the 21st century. And that's not to say people can do this with good intentions and distort the ageless wisdom teachings. That's why I appreciate this group, because they have such a background in the teachings. They're going to know if something is just created or something that's really based on something substantial. Okay, Rose, you have your hands up.
Yeah, we have a number of hands. Go ahead, Rose.
Yes, I just wanted to comment that the build-up to that really did enhance it and make it have that impact on your subconscious. And as it was morphing between the different shapes, there's one time where it's like on the the dodecahedron, not with the points, but like the flat one.
Yes.
That to me like was representing the physical, the physical plane, or the lower, not to say lower and higher, but like the more outer manifestation. And then when it would morph into like the star, what do you call it? Staglated,
Stellated.
the stellated with the points, then that was like an inner dimension or the inner planes or an inner part of the subplane. So as I saw it morphing, it was like moving from one plane to the other, or from the subtle manifestation to the object of manifestation, and then back and forth in this rhythmic cyclic flow. And that's something that's so powerful with animation, is it's hard to visualize that, but yet here it's visualized for you. And now, once you see it, you can never unsee it. That concept is now easy in your mind to visualize. And then it will also help you visualize other such things in these very diverse, multi-dimensional, fourth dimensional, even though I think we're still working with three-dimensional ways. So very powerful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rose, and I appreciate your sensitivity, because understanding mental concepts is important, but being able to let those theories and principles go so that your awareness can move into more of the actual experience. And these symbols, even animated, aren't the thing in itself, but they move us exponentially closer. Thank you. Ariane?
You hear me?
I can.
Okay. Just a couple questions. So I'm sort of new to this, and I've only taken 5 of these classes, so it's a bit over my head, but I'm going to try to understand what you're saying. So are you saying that this symbol um is actually representing the energies of a person, or the astrological chart of the person in 3D? And or are those two things even the same? Is the astrological chart of a person ultimately their energies? So that's the
It
first question.
okay, and it can be both. It can be both. It can be a planetary life, and it can be your own, uh, like 12-petaled egoic lotus in the crown center. And it's how you apply it, how it how it makes inroads into your space. And it's all right if it's just pretty pictures or beautiful geometry, but the idea behind these presentations is to show that there is geometry and structure to everything. And you come into incarnation with a certain geometric structure in your auric fields, and you leave with a more upgraded, higher expression of that.
Well, that's really helpful, because we usually think of energy as an amorphous thing, and what you're saying, even energy is structured or has like maybe a crystalline matrix or something like that. Okay, so then I have a second question. If it's more personal, I don't know if this is the right venue for this, but you mentioned earlier on that as you evolve, you implied that there would be more fire. Does that mean that the body is carrying more heat? Because I have a question about that.
Well, yes,
Okay.
it is not uncommon when people receive a powerful impact from the soul or higher energies that their bodies heat up.
Okay. So can I just share very briefly this situation with me is that um yeah, I had menopause like 14 years ago, so I'm not having hot flashes, but what happens is my temperature of my body just fluctuates wildly during the day. It's not like I'm not sweating or anything, but when I sleep during the night, when I wake up in the morning, there's a lot of heat at the base of my spine. Is that what you're referring to? Because I know from what I've studied, that at night when you're sleeping, that you're actually, if you're part of an ashram, like part of a spiritual school on the plane of the soul, that is to say,
Yes,
not in the physical body, but you're part of a greater ashram, like one of the masters' ashrams, that you are receiving tutelage at night when you're sleeping. I don't sleep very much because I can't, but when I sleep, I wake up extremely hot at the base of my spine. And it's like, also, I can't even wear covers anymore. I just I use sheets even when it's cold. So is that what you're talking about? That there's like heat being generated? Um,
well, thank you. You know, I cannot say conclusively, but I would say this. What you have just outlined is a key characteristic of initiation. And before we get into the base of the spine, I just wanted to say that your idea of this crystalline matrix is right on. The, the Tibetan makes the statement that you cannot undergo initiation until you striate your mental field. Now, we know striations basically mean a number of lines or energies or forces that are in parallel. They're moving uniformly along a wire, through the air, however you want to use it. And that this is this is because the normal human auric field, the lower etheric, astral, and mental, if you were to look into somebody's aura, you'd see just a conglomeration of bungled lines of energies that are not connecting. They're swirling and they're morphing. but not in an organic, orderly way. And when you undergo initiation, your mental body is striated so that these higher forces, particularly Shambhala, can now come directly down through. It's all about electricity. And this idea of at night in the base of the spine, this is a very common characteristic of people, spiritual people who have devoted themselves to a very large degree to doing the spiritual path and service. And yes, the workers on the inner side, which can be the master, it can be his senior, his or her senior disciples, and they apply these energies, and you're not necessarily aware of them, but when you wake up you say, whoa, like, wow, I'm really hot in this part of my body. It doesn't have to be just the base of the spine. It can be any one of the centers that have a reflection along the torso. So that was excellent. I'm so happy you shared that with us, because this is, like, to me, the practical experience of some of these very things we're talking about. Okay, thank you. Heidi? Heidi, you're on.
Yeah, thank you, Duane. I just wanted to thank you again for this. We've seen this before, but your talk, your program before really did ground it in a little different way. And I'll just share some things I wrote down quickly after watching it.
Please.
Light within form, communicating to the space it is held in. As it does that, it harmonizes the appearance of the opposing symbols, yet it is vibrating in the oneness of space. Cosmic body and universal mind expressing itself through vision. Also, I was aware of, because the image was moving in it kind of forward and backwards, I really felt it as a breath. So the awareness of the breath moving through and vibrating all of these symbols, and how they're all together. They're not separate at all, but they can appear that way in life. So I loved the idea of just being able to just the recognition of that oneness and the light moving through and spreading into the space is gorgeous, because to me, that's actually what does uplift the life forms. And that's actually what I'm here for.
Excellent. Imagine that there are an infinite variety of geometric forms that are in motion, and they represent each and every one of us slightly differently. Even if you're all second ray or third ray, they're vibrating at different speeds. The geometry has much similarity, but it can be different. And that all these abstract, and we say abstract because they're so unknown, but all these real selves, in other words, Heidi, are you looking at a mirror of yourself when you see this symbol? And this isn't some kind of philosophical trickery here, but these are symbols of inner dimensions. They're symbols that many people carry in their auric fields. And when you recognize them, you go, oh, you go from, okay, I understand the theory and the principle, you go into awe. And that is the real connection of the intuition and the opening of the heart. When you can interface with these symbols, and they don't all have to be animated, but it's like a big cosmic mirror is put up to yourself and you say, wow, that is just so insanely beautiful. And then all of a sudden you kick back and you say, that's what I am. Well, that's what I'm becoming. And I know this is sort of taking a little bit of poetic license here, but it happens to be true. Thank you, Heidi.
I absolutely agree with that. And it also helps us actually navigate right now because we don't have to, we don't have to fight that stuff. There's, we don't have, we actually, for me, this time actually is alluding to exactly what you said, is that there are new ways to move forward and we don't have to do it the old way. And when you have that reflection of an opposing force and you can harmonize it, you're no longer in that opposing force. You're actually formulating something of beauty, which is actually what we are. Anyway,
Yes,
it's
beautiful.
it's pretty amazing, and I so appreciate these connections. They really are, well, they flow the energy of the universe, and whoever's able to receive it at this time gets to. It's really cool. Thank you.
Wonderful insight, experience, and your ability to share it is so important. Thank you. Okay,
We
we
have all
okay,
kinds of
okay.
comments.
Okay. Okay, BL. Let it roll.
Um, Susie says, to me, the ending emanation reminded me of in-breathing, out-breathing, male, female, and emitting, unfolding, passive, receptive.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I think Heidi also struck on that beautiful insight that you have opposing forces, but if you don't war against them, but draw them into you, into your greater auric field, you can now use them. They're an asset. And this is the unfortunate paradox of physical plane living. A lot of stuff that irritates us or aggravates us is actually the temporary exposure to some powerful energy or force behind the apparent irritation that we need, that will help us grow. Because as has just been shared, we need to take in everything and even transmutate the dark into good, because even the darkness has a light of its own, but it's a light that's so dim it's fearful of a greater light. And as I've mentioned so many times before, like little children, you have to pacify them, you have to soothe them, you have to say it's going to be all right, this is the program, jump on it, we're going to the occult circus and we're going to have real fun instead of going to PT Barnum's. Okay, excellent. Thank
Um,
you.
Next up on the list, um, I went sensed to the rays, the opposite sign, then easily went to the sun sign ray. And then when going to the ascendant sign, I forgot the ray, but it was all aha, where I wasn't integrating. Very helpful. So many dear things.
These teachings will eventually make us all speechless, because all these teachings are alluding to the intuition, to the divine will, to that aha. And that aha is built on many, many, many lifetimes of tedious research. And that's what we're attempting to do here in some small way. Make that leap of faith. Not faith because you can't see and you don't know, but faith because you just had a jolt. You just had an experience. You just had a download of energy that says, wow, this is different. This is totally different than what I'm familiar with. And I know it's the right way. You don't abandon the past. You put it in its proper place. And this is why the mind is so important. The mind takes us up the scaffolding. It takes us up the Jacob's ladder. But in the end, we have to let go and know that we're safe and that we're now walking on clouds and there's no ladder underneath us. Unless through service, we want to send those liberating forces down the ladder. Vestments, what the Buddhists call it. Okay, we're going to take one more and then we're going to go into BL's chat because we're moving close to our expiration time, which is actually a misnomer. Okay, no more comments, then we
Yeah,
shall.
oh yeah, there are. Let me just skim through a couple of them really quick. Most of them are just saying thank you. Continuing conduit you present to us, the poetry in motion, literally. I love that.
Beautiful.
I don't have the words to share, but if I may open my video and show my sacred geometry, mandala uh, color during this. This is from Robin. Is it possible that you can put it in the chat, Robin?
Yeah, it would have to be in the chat. If we switch shares, we know what happens with my limited understanding of these technicalities. But the chat would be great.
She says no, it's physical. Can
Oh,
you
it's
take a
physical.
can you
Take a
take a
picture.
picture of it? Not able to scan. How about a picture on your phone and then nope.
Well, I apologize for that. If I was a little more savvy, we could do lots of additional things. But please get my email address and send it to me, and I promise I will get back with you with a share or a comment.
Okay, a couple more thanks, but we can go ahead and move on now, okay?
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've discussed the rays and the colors and the notes, and there's a couple of passages here where DK is talking about prior to each one of us coming into incarnation as personalities, the soul sounded its note and it listened to the quality of that note. And then from that listening, it made the determination that that soul on its own plane needed to have an improvement along one or other of the seven rays. So, what does the ego do? The divine ego? It sends down these threads, three threads that create the physical etheric, the astral, and the mental. And this is how we evolve lifetime to lifetime. Every lifetime is different. Everyone is built on the one before it. And it deals with color and sound. And we'll review this in our next presentation with greater detail. And then DK says that that sound flashes into color. Color and sound are interchangeable, and the study of it is the ability to understand your different vehicles and how to use them in meditation. Okay, now you saw this at our last presentation, and we're going to devote probably in the next presentation to each one of you making inroads into your own chart. But what I've done today is I laid a little bit of the foundation in our last presentation, and I'm going to lay a little more of the foundation here now. But what I want to do is I want to take the six-fold chart, which I suggested everybody download in the chat, and then try to the best of their ability what they think their rays are. And if you only think you know what ray your personality or excuse me, your physical body, I'm going to use my pointer here. Nope, not going to happen. Here we go. Okay, this would be the etheric ray, the astral, the mental, excuse me, the the mental, the personality, the soul, and the monadic. Don't be intimidated by this chart. Just try to get a feel for what your rays may be. Okay, so what we're going to give as a demonstration is somebody. This is our wonderful and beautiful host, BL. She's given us the opportunity to share her chart. And this is basically her outline for her astrology and some of her rayology. And all I'm going to do is just say this is a blueprint. This is like the path of return, because it tells us what she's experiencing now. Therefore, what's going to be on the ascendancy, on the power of her personality and her soul inspiration, and how it's going to lead with the rising sign towards the future and eventually her monadic life. So what I've done is I've put BL's rays together in this little chart. And at the top, I've added the three signs that we saw earlier. She has a Leo sun, she has Gemini rising, and the sun sign opposite of Leo is Aquarius. So now, what would this look like geometrically and in motion? And this is what we're going to move into now. Now, you'll notice in Photoshop, what I did is I took the last chart that you just saw, removed the type, the majority of the type, and I went into the blend tool. And Photoshop will take an image and it will fuse it so that you're still looking at the same image, but where the rays overlap, you get these morphed and you get these alternate colors, like when the violet of the seventh ray, which would be her body, seventh ray body, interfaces with her sixth ray emotional body, you get many hues of lavender, violet, and even purple in the outer periphery as the violet interfaces with the second ray of indigo blue, which is the main background for the whole theme. And then at the top, you have those three astrological aspects of the sun in Leo, ascendant Gemini, and the opposite of Leo, excuse me,
Aquarius.
Aquarius. Thank you. And I've got an older chart here that I'm operating from. Okay, so now relax, take a deep breath, and you will be introduced to BL on a totally different level. And this will take a few seconds to boot up because of one reason or another. I think I think this is the animation. No, I don't see it operating. Let's see. I got to get out of this. No, I can't get out of the laser pointer to activate the video. Are you with me, Rose?
Yes. So Duane, go back to the pointer on your thing, and you
Yep.
can select it. You can change it from laser. You can remove the laser and go back to the
Okay.
on your control.
Okay. Thank you. Rose to the rescue. Take a deep breath. And it takes about 30 to 40 seconds. And that's for people to assimilate what we're doing here. Although I think I may have covered that in the previous image.
Padme Hum. Hum Mani 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 Padme Hum.
Did we lose you, Duane?
Yes, but for slightly different reasons. You know,
Can I
go
can
ahead.
I just
Yeah,
say something?
please do.
Um, Sorry, I know we're actually out of time, but I just wanted to say that moves me every time. Thank you for doing that for me. Over the many years, I have worked with and morphed what my rheological profile was. And one of the things that Michael Robinson asked us to do at one point was to think of what the three-letter keywords would be. Like all the disciples had three-letter keywords.
Yes.
And so this incorporated that. And just like my rheology, that kind of morphed over the years. It was always SLC there. That's what I got the very first. And it started out as strength, love, and compassion. And in that compassion was service and compassion for all of humanity. And Michael honed in on that. And so after a couple of years, I mean, there was a reason I picked strength to begin with, because
Yes.
we were pushing strength in a meditation for several years to humanity. Um, but then it focused more to me on service. And I have to say that after doing several presentations on it, service is not what you think. And there's information in DK's books that says this is not service, gives you a long list. But I want to relate two stories about service. Okay. I
Please do.
was young and stupid and in the military and at Rhein-Main Air Base in Germany in the Air Force. Okay. When the hostages from the Iran, when Iran fell and
Oh,
those hostages were
wow.
there. And Wiesbaden was the hospital. So they evacuated them to Wiesbaden, and they did that through Rhein-Main. And at that point, I worked in personnel, military personnel, and I said, I'll do anything. I'll do anything. Tell me exactly what you need me to do to help these people. And they said, okay, BL, every single one of these people need new uniforms. Will you iron them for us?
Wow.
And I'm like, well, I asked. But the point and the moral of this story is you do whatever the service E needs. You don't do what you think your ideal service is. And let me tell you, I hated ironing. But they wanted these people, the first time anybody saw them, to be in their military uniforms with their awards, with everything. They wanted them to have the dignity of that. So I ironed their uniforms, and every one of them had lost so much weight, they had to start over again. But the point is, that taught me a lot about service then. And then I had another incident in my 40s or 50s where someone needed help. He was just getting ready to start a job. So I bought some uniform clothes for her, and I bought these really comfortable shoes for her. And she took one look at the shoes and she said, those are old lady shoes. I'll never wear them. And you think, oh my God. But point of the matter, again, when I apparently needed it upside the head and in the face, was it's never about what I think my service should be. It's always about what the person who needs it rendered need and in the manner that they need it. So anyway, um,
Beautiful.
I love the way uh, I gave him the words service, love, and compassion. And Duane put the sentence together the art of service lovingly provided. And that's one of the things that I'm working on. Oh yeah, you have here opposite sign Leo, and it's not opposite sign is Aquarius. And you
Thank
have
you.
Aquarius in one of the others. And you have
Yes.
6 here for the astral and 2 here, and you've redone that. But part of that is because Michael told me he thought I was shifting um, like Disciple ISGL from the 6th ray to the 2nd ray. And he thought it could be both in my astral and also in my soul. And there is a
Excellent.
transition period. So anyway, I just wanted to
Thank you for that correction.
clarify that. And I know you've done a new one.
Yes, actually, I couldn't find the one that I ended up doing for you. I apologize. But
I'll
I
send
think,
it to you because
yeah,
I have the
thank you.
new one.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, okay, we
But
can take a couple of comments and then we got to close.
Dwayne, I just want to make a comment. As some other people mentioned in the chat, their eyes started getting wet and watery. And that also happened to me. And what really did it is a combination of things, but you said you're going to see BL in a whole new way. And I actually was thinking of her from this as it was going, and it really went beyond the mind and into the soul quality of who she is. And it was just so moving. You literally just start crying.
Join the crowd, Rose. Every time I hear it, I have to do that. Every time I look at it, it's Dwayne's beautiful way of animating our chart for us. Isn't that gorgeous?
Well, thank you. That is so sweet. One of the occult tidbits that may have little value to some, but it sort of, you might say, rests on my occult shoulders, is that there is a fifth ray, there is a fifth Kumara that works with our planetary logos. And this fifth Kumara is actually the seventh ray lord of the seventh ray right now. And one of her objectives is to link the physical brain with the etheric brain. And I can't go into this extensively here, but there's a reason for the fluttering of this organic chart. And what it does is it picks up on the brain wave frequency and it disarms or neutralizes the lower mind so that the energy coming from higher levels can ground itself into the physical brain. And it's something I've been working on for years and years and years, and it goes into neuroscience and vibrations and entrainment and all kinds of stuff. And my basic theory is until the third initiation, we're all hypnotized by the material world. When you can present these charts and get the right mathematical vibration, the right colors, these are her rays, relatively speaking, assuming I get the right chart out, and her astrological influences, plus this is her favorite mantra. In other words, she picked this Mani Padme Hum. I didn't. So I can guarantee you that the note of some of her different vehicles is picked up in that Mani Padme Hum. Not just because it's a universal mantra that's very powerful in and of itself, but she has inherently, and if you listen to the drone in the background, I can almost guarantee you that it relates to certain of these rays on certain levels because you do not choose the music you listen to just at random. You specifically zero in and try to listen to music that reflects who you are, or inspires you, or lifts you up. And DK has said continuously through his different material that the science of mantra is going to be expanded after 2025, because there'll be enough advanced disciples who can use this magical work safely, creatively, for service, rather than going back to the Atlantean days when this type of information was used for self-aggrandizement. Okay, excellent. Any last comments before we close? Such an amazing group.
Well, there was a lot of, thank you, and very moving, and all of that. And of course, we will put the chat in there. And Duane, I will put the later version of this.
Yes, thank you.
And I did put in there, I did put in the remarks for everybody to see. Yes, that is my mantra, and I've used it for years and years and years and years. But more importantly, I had the music for it in my head. And the very first time I heard this version of it, not the first part, not the last part, but the very middle part of
Yes,
it. And I'd
yes.
sing it for you, but you'd all be totally, I mean, I'm horrible voice, but that middle part of it,
Yes,
that that was it. That was what my mind knew all along. I awakened to, I didn't really awaken to it because we're gradual progress, It took me many
yes,
lifetimes to get to this point. And I'm sure one of those was as a monk, using that mantra over and over and over again. But my mind knew the music and it heard it in this particular
yes,
version of it. So
yes. That's awesome. Wonderful share. Thank you so much, BL. And thank all of you for coming to spend time with us. This is a multi-dimensional project, and everyone is important, irrespective of anything they say. We appreciate your presence. So we send our love and thank you so much.
thank you, everybody, and goodbye.